Hey Walrus Squad, today we're going over Pathfinder and how to use his abilities to get more kills and more wins in Apex Legends. Let's go right now. Now, of course, just like all the other characters in Apex Legends, Pathfinder has his own unique set of abilities. Here they are on your screen if you need to read through those. But no discussion of any Apex character is complete without first talking about their hitbox size. Pathfinder has a total hitbox size of 107,877 pixels, which is on the smaller end of the spectrum in terms of the total number of pixels for any character, as you can see by this image here. He's actually the third smallest hitbox in the game right now, but his height can be deceptive because he often looks like a bigger target than he actually is. Being a smaller overall target in the game and having fast movement capabilities makes Pathfinder rival Octane in terms of speed and map coverage time. And although he has received some nerfs in the past, he's still a great character to use, especially for the more experienced Apex player. The low profile perk additionally makes Pathfinder more difficult to hit, but it does add 5% to incoming gun and explosive damage. And overall, Pathfinder is all about mobility. His abilities make him extremely useful in aggressive situations when you're pushing another team, but he can also make the quick escape that will allow him time to heal and regroup. Because Pathfinder is so mobile, the learning curve for his grapple ability is typically steep and takes a lot of time to master. Just a moment of hesitation can sometimes mean the difference between surviving and going down. So let's talk about his abilities, especially his grapple gun, and share some tips on how you can make the most of them. His passive ability is called Insider Knowledge, and the game describes it as scan a survey beacon to reduce the cooldown of the ZIPLINE gun. The recon portion of this ability also highlights the next circle's location on you and your teammates' maps, and both of these abilities can actually be quite useful. Seeing the next circle on your map can help plan your movements across the map and can help you secure the perfect location before the other teams. Out of all the recon legends in the game, Pathfinder benefits the most from scanning survey beacons because the cooldown for his ultimate is reduced by 10 seconds every time he scans one. You'll actually see a little text pop up on your screen every time you scan it saying that your ultimate cooldown is reduced by 10 seconds. And it normally has a 120-second cooldown time, but scan enough survey beacons and that time can be reduced to as low as 60 seconds. Keep in mind though that scanning the beacon does activate a sound effect that nearby enemies can hear, so make sure your position is safe before doing so. But now to the good stuff. Let's go over some tips on Pathfinder's tactical ability, the grappling hook. And the game describes it as grapple to get to out of reach places quickly. Pathfinder's grapple has received a cooldown nerf over the last couple seasons, primarily because really good players became too mobile and had distinct advantages over most other players. The developers have done a good job leveling it out since then because the cooldown time can vary depending on how far you've traveled with it. If you cover a lot of ground with one grapple swing, the cooldown may be as high as 30 seconds, but it will never exceed 30. Shorter distances will result in faster cooldown times, so get in the habit of checking your cooldown time after each use. This will help you develop a sense of the various cooldown times you'll see while using the grapple, and knowing your exact cooldown time can come in handy when you need to be as mobile as possible, such as during heavy team fights when you need to reposition and flank often, or when you're trying to outrun the incoming zone. So just remind yourself to look down at the cooldown time after each use to help plan your next move and your overall game sense. A good tip to remember is to know the exact range of the grapple. Attaching the grapple at its maximum range will allow you to achieve the highest speed and greatest distance possible, which obviously can be very useful if you're trying to escape a gunfight or be that first third party to the party. Get it? Spend time in the firing range grappling onto objects at various heights and distances, because knowing the grapple range can sometimes save you from wasting precious time, since there is a slight delay while waiting for your grapple to recoil itself after missing the mark. And of course, watch for the grapple crosshair to turn blue before launching, because that will help you learn to predict its maximum range as well. And knowing this max range is especially helpful during team fights. So the next tip is to make sure you always look for unexpected angles and flanks during fights. Pathfinder is all about mobility, so it's important for you to use his grapple to either retreat during a fight in order to heal or catch an enemy off guard with a clutch flank. And you might wonder, how do I do a grapple flank without the enemy seeing me? Well, it works best if you make sure not to flank until you know the enemy is occupied, preferably with other teammates. Avoid their line of sight when initiating the grapple, and depend on your teammates to keep the bad guys' undivided attention. Take the time to look for opportunities like this because it will often lead to some easy kills for you and your squad, especially if your teammates teammates are aggressive throughout the time it takes you to flank. Look for either a lamppost, a building corner, or any other object on the map with height that will allow you to swing to the side of or behind the bad guys. Just try to keep your focus on different angles or fighting positions anytime you start fighting. To pull off a good flank, you often need to depend on the outward swinging trajectory of your grapple because you will be pulled straight toward the grapple point unless you move while grappling. So for example, if you want to swing out Tarzan style or launch yourself out of the swing, strafe and move either to the left or right when your grapple attaches. This will allow you to swing out and around instead of just being pulled straight into the target spot. You become a much more difficult target to hit while grappling this way because of your unpredictable trajectory and your speed change. Another cool tip to remember is to use your grapple to pull yourself into an enemy, or if you hold the backwards button, pull the enemy towards you while grappling. This can be a fun trick to pull off, but you probably won't find a lot of practical use for it. I just want you to know that it's an option for you. Quickly now, let's talk about some tips for Pathfinder's ultimate ability, the zipline gun. The game describes it as create a zipline for everyone to use. Think of Pathfinder's ult as a solid addition to his tactical. You can use it for a lot of the same reasons that you use his grapple gun, except it obviously benefits your entire team because your squad mates can use it as well. And there are some advantages and disadvantages to be aware of with it, so let's cover a couple of them real quick. The first tip is to use your zipline to give your entire team height advantage. There's so many different applications for this strategy, but the main idea of height advantage remains mostly the same. If you're attempting to third party another team, use your zipline to help you and your squad get there faster, and be sure to end the line somewhere with height. Since the zipline remains throughout the entire game, it's also there for retreating if the fight goes south. Another tip is to use your zipline to help your teammates cover more ground quickly. And this is especially helpful if you have to outrun the incoming zone, because the zipline can be a very simple way for you and your teammates to stay alive instead of dying outside the zone. And this type of strategy is also useful if your teammates are still looting, but you have finished and want to move on. Or it can also provide a way of escape for a teammate who just respawned in a hotspot. If that's the case, then set your zipline for them to escape or catch up to your location quickly after they drop down. Pathfinder's ultimate can also be useful as an offensive tool as well by allowing you and your squad to reposition and push on enemy teams faster than just running alone. For example, if you decide to get aggressive on another team, shoot your zipline down closer to where the enemy team is to allow you to get into a fighting position with the ability to retreat quickly if necessary. But it is important to remember the two main disadvantages when using the zipline for something like this, and those are the slow and predictable direction in which you travel while ziplining, because that totally leaves you vulnerable. It's very easy to shoot someone who's on a zipline, and also the loud noise that ziplining makes. Enemies will easily hear you coming if you zipline in too close, so be ready to do some fancy hops by detaching and reattaching over and over if you start getting shot at. And now let's share some big time tips and tricks for using Pathfinder's abilities and how it can benefit you the most. Let's go. Use the sound of gunfire to cover your grapple sound. Because Pathfinder's tactical is so important when it comes to repositions and flanks, you'll often be grappling in somewhat close to the enemy. Try to plan your shot while your teammates are engaging the enemy team if you want to completely take them by surprise. If there isn't any gunfire while you're flanking with your grapple, the bad guys will often hear you coming in, so try to set that grapple when there's a lot of gunfire around, because usually that'll help muffle the sound of your flank. Remember to use your grapple as much as you can. Aiming the grapple and swinging effectively takes some practice, and there's no better way to practice than through repetition. With a maximum cooldown of 30 seconds, there's no reason not to practice attaching it to all different types of surfaces around the map. Even when you're moving across open ground, just jump up and grapple to the ground out in front of you for a little extra speed boost, because we know that practice makes perfect. Treat your ultimate as an extension of your tactical. Wherever you would go with your grapple, your teammates can often follow with your zipline. So it's important to set your zipline for your teammates' benefits instead of only for yourself, because what's good for your team is ultimately good for you. Try not to set yourself and your teammates up for being wide open targets on a long zipline out in the open. Click the link in my Discord channel down below to join the Walrus Squad and chat with us directly off of YouTube. We've got a great group of people there, and I know you'll make some new friends, so be sure to join us. Thank you for watching and for subscribing, and as always, I'll see you in the next video.